Are you working toward publishing your novel? Because today we're going to discuss the 8 signs your novel isn't ready to be published, especially if you have a completed manuscript. So be sure to stick around. Let's get started! Hey guys, Nour here, and welcome back to my channel. And for those visiting for the first time, hello! I'm the fantasy author of the novel Divinity Falling. Be sure to subscribe for weekly writing advice videos. Today's topic is important for all writers. Now, if you don't plan on publishing your novel, that's completely fine. Not every writer wants their work out in the world. But if you do want to publish your work, then keeping the signs I'm going to discuss in mind is a must. Obviously, your story isn't ready to be published if it's badly written, there are grammar mistakes, and you haven't figured out the ending yet. But that's not what I'm here to discuss. Instead, I want to dive deep into storytelling signs that your novel isn't ready to be published yet, especially if you already have everything written. The first sign is that the quality of writing dips after the inciting incident. When you're done writing your story, read it and pay attention to the chapters after the inciting incident. Are they full of action and story-moving events? Or does the writing feel dull, expository, and just full of filler? If it's the latter, then you'll want to go back and revise. The middle chapters being rushed or jam-packed with info dumps is a sign that your manuscript isn't ready for the world yet. The second sign is that your characters feel flat, don't have much personality, and haven't really evolved over the duration of the story. Your characters do things, but they don't really have a motive or a goal. They don't even have a real opinion of what's happening. They simply want to fight the antagonist because he's evil, and that's that. There's no depth to their character or why they do what they do. As for their personality, it's non-existent or cliche. In this case, you definitely need to figure out your characters and go back and revise. The third sign is that the conflict isn't actively the center of concern. You have a conflict, but it's often forgotten in the middle chapters. You rely heavily on subplots like romantic relationships to move the story, but the conflict is barely on the characters' minds. This leaves you with plenty of info dumps and random side stories, but not enough of the one element that matters the most. The fourth sign is that the stakes aren't high enough. This is similar to my previous point. If your story has a conflict but it's rarely the center of concern, then you most likely haven't written high stakes. High stakes move the story forward and make your characters' lives harder with each chapter. High stakes are also known as the rising action. They build and build throughout the book until the story reaches its climax. So a lack of high stakes means your story doesn't have any rising action, which means that your story isn't a story yet. The fifth sign is that your dialogue is bland or stuffed with unnecessary bits. If written with purpose, dialogue can play a big role in character and story development. But if it's just exploited as a way to add word count to your story, then it's most likely full of info dumps and nonsensical filler. An example of this is when characters describe their entire backstory using dialogue, or even have boring small talk like discuss the weather. This kind of dialogue is a big sign that your novel isn't ready for the world, because no reader will ever enjoy a story with mind-numbing dialogue. The sixth sign is that there's too much exposition or too little of it to show the world. Exposition is necessary to show us some key details about the story world, but that doesn't mean that we need to smear it on every scene and every sentence. If you have so much exposition that readers need to take a break to digest everything, then you must go back and revise. On the opposite end, you also don't want to not include any exposition, as that will leave readers without a clue about the setting or the story world. The seventh sign is that there are plot holes. If you're reading your story and realize there are confusing things or things left unanswered, then you must go back and address that. You can't assume that readers will roll with your plot hole, because they won't. If something doesn't make sense, go back and make sure it does. Don't leave anything hanging. And the eighth sign is that the story is too short or too long. Every genre has its own word count expectations. If you go over or under the word count, you will piss off some readers and publishers. So make sure you follow the word count rules for the genre you're writing. And if your completed manuscript needs to be condensed or expanded upon, then go back and do so. So that's all I have for you today. I'd love to know, is your ultimate goal to publish your writing? Let me know in the comments. If you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe. I put out weekly writing advice videos that will take your story to the next level. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media to see what I'm up to from day to day and to chat with me. And before we go, I just want to give a quick shout out to Sarah Frayne and Alan J. Early from my shoutouts here over on Patreon, as well as all my amazing patrons. Thank you all so much for your support. I really appreciate you. And remember, Nour for president!